On December 26, 1943, in the dark Arctic waters north of Norway, one of Germany's most powerful warships met its end. The German battleship Scharnhorst had survived years of war. It had raided Allied shipping, outrun stronger enemies, and escaped from dangerous situations. But on this day, it faced a force it could not escape. This is the story of how Scharnhorst was found, hunted, and destroyed. You need to understand what Scharnhorst was. It was fast, heavily armed, and built for long-range operations. It carried 9 11-inch guns, strong armor, and could reach speeds above 30 knots. Germany used ships like this to attack Allied convoys in the Atlantic and Arctic. These convoys carried food, fuel, and weapons to the Soviet Union. If Germany cut this lifeline, it could weaken the Eastern Front. That made Scharnhorst a serious threat.
By late 1943, the situation had changed. Germany had better radar, better coordination, and more ships in the region. Still, German command believed Scharnhorst could strike one more time. Intelligence reports showed an Arctic convoy moving toward the Soviet port of Murmansk. This convoy was known as JW-55B. It had escorts, but German planners believed Scharnhorst could break through. Admiral Karl Donitz approved the operation. Rear Admiral Erich Bay took command of Scharnhorst. On 25 December 1943, Scharnhorst left its base in northern Norway. It sailed into a harsh environment. The Arctic winter brought darkness, heavy seas, and freezing temperatures. Visibility was poor. These conditions made radar critical. The British had an advantage here. Their ships carried advanced radar systems. Scharnhorst had radar, but it was less reliable and more vulnerable.
The British knew Scharnhorst was at sea. They had broken German codes through intelligence work. This allowed them to track German movements. Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser led the British home fleet. He prepared a trap. He placed one force, led by Vice Admiral Robert Burnett, close to the convoy. This force included cruisers HMS Belfast, HMS Norfolk, and HMS Sheffield. A second force, led by Fraser himself, waited farther south. This force included the battleship HMS Duke of York, the cruiser HMS Jamaica, and several destroyers. The plan was simple. Burnett's cruisers would find Scharnhorst and keep contact. They would guide Fraser's heavier force into position. Once Scharnhorst was engaged, it would face overwhelming firepower. The key factor was radar. The British planned to fight at night and in poor visibility, where radar gave them control. Early on 26 December, Burnett's cruisers made contact. At around 9 in the morning, HMS Belfast detected Scharnhorst on radar. The British ships moved to intercept. Snow squalls reduced visibility. The sea was rough. At about 9:30, the British opened fire. Their radar guided their guns. Scharnhorst returned fire using optical sights. It scored some near misses, but it struggled to track targets it could not see clearly.
During this first engagement, a critical event occurred. A British shell struck Scharnhorst's forward radar. This damaged its ability to detect enemies at long range. From this moment, Scharnhorst operated at a severe disadvantage. It could still fight, but it had lost its eyes in the Arctic night. Admiral Bay faced a choice. He could press the attack on the convoy, or he could withdraw. He chose to continue the mission. He tried to maneuver around the British cruisers. He increased speed and attempted to break contact. For a time, he succeeded. Scharnhorst used its speed to pull away, but without reliable radar, it could not maintain awareness of British positions. Burnett's cruisers kept contact using radar. They shadowed Scharnhorst from a distance. They avoided close combat with its heavy guns. Their role was to guide Fraser's force. Every movement mattered. Every report helped close the trap.
By midday, Scharnhorst tried again to approach the convoy. Burnett's cruisers intercepted once more. Another exchange of fire followed. Again, Scharnhorst failed to land decisive hits.
The British ships kept their distance. They used radar to track and engage. Scharnhorst took more damage, though none was fatal at this stage. Admiral Bay began to realize the situation. The convoy was heavily protected. British forces were present in strength. He decided to withdraw and return to base. This decision came late. The British trap had already formed. Admiral Fraser's force moved into position during the afternoon. HMS Duke of York was a modern battleship. It carried 14-inch guns, powerful radar, and strong armor. It was slower than Scharnhorst, but it did not need to chase blindly. It had guidance from Burnett's cruisers. At around 4:30 in the afternoon, Duke of York made radar contact. Fraser closed the distance. He positioned his ships to intercept Scharnhorst's path. The Arctic darkness had deepened. Snow and sea spray reduced visibility. Radar controlled the battle. At about 4:50, Duke of York opened fire. The first salvo found its mark. Heavy shells struck Scharnhorst. One hit damaged a boiler room. This reduced its speed. Speed was Scharnhorst's main advantage. Losing it changed the fight. Scharnhorst returned fire. Its gunners worked under pressure. They relied on limited optical sightings. They scored some hits on Duke of York, but these caused only minor damage. British armor held. Fraser pressed the attack. He maintained distance to use his radar advantage. He kept Scharnhorst under constant fire. Each salvo increased the damage. Scharnhorst's speed dropped further. Its ability to maneuver declined. British destroyers moved in. Ships like HMS Saumarez, HMS Savage, HMS Scorpion, and HMS Stored prepared torpedo attacks. Torpedoes posed a major threat. A single hit could cripple a ship. As darkness increased, the destroyers closed the range. They launched torpedoes from multiple directions. Several torpedoes struck Scharnhorst. Explosions tore into its hull. Flooding began. Speed dropped again. Scharnhorst fought back. Its secondary guns fired at the attacking destroyers. It scored hits and forced some to withdraw. But the damage continued to build. Fire spread. Systems failed. Duke of York continued to fire. Its main guns delivered repeated hits. Each impact weakened Scharnhorst further. The ship slowed to below 20 knots, then lower. It could no longer outrun its enemy. More British ships joined the attack. HMS Jamaica added its guns to the battle. Additional destroyers launched torpedoes. The pattern was clear. The British coordinated their forces with precision. Radar guided their moves. Communication remained strong. By around 7 in the evening, Scharnhorst was heavily damaged. It had lost speed, suffered flooding, and taken multiple hits. Still, it did not surrender. Its crew continued to fight. The final phase began as British destroyers launched another wave of torpedoes. Several struck in quick succession. The cumulative damage proved fatal. Scharnhorst slowed to a near stop. Its list increased. Water flooded into critical compartments. At approximately 7:45 in the evening, Scharnhorst capsized and sank. The Arctic waters closed over it. Out of a crew of nearly 2,000 men, only 36 survived. The rest were lost in freezing conditions. This battle showed the importance of radar. British ships used radar to detect, track, and engage their target. Scharnhorst lost its radar early in the fight. This single event shaped the outcome. Without it, the ship could not fight effectively in poor visibility. It also showed the value of coordination. The British used multiple forces with a clear plan. Cruisers found and tracked the target. A battleship delivered heavy fire. Destroyers executed torpedo attacks. Each role supported the others. Speed alone did not save Scharnhorst. In earlier years, speed allowed it to escape stronger enemies. In this battle, speed was reduced by damage. Once that happened, the ship had no path out. Intelligence played a key role. British code breaking allowed them to predict German movements. They placed their ships in the right positions before contact occurred. This removed the element of surprise. Leadership decisions also mattered. Admiral Bay chose to continue the mission after losing radar. He attempted to reach the convoy despite strong opposition. Later, he ordered a withdrawal, but by then, the British had closed the trap.
The environment added pressure. Arctic conditions made every action harder. Cold affected equipment and crew. Darkness reduced visibility. Rough seas limited movement. These factors increased the value of radar and planning. The loss of Scharnhorst marked the end of German surface raiding in the Arctic. After this battle, Germany relied more on submarines. The Royal Navy secured the Arctic convoy routes with greater confidence. For you, the lesson is clear. Technology, coordination, and timing decide outcomes in modern warfare. A powerful weapon system loses value if it lacks awareness. A fast ship loses value if it cannot see its enemy. A bold plan fails if it ignores changing conditions. Scharnhorst entered the battle as a threat. It left as a wreck on the ocean floor. The Royal Navy executed a plan with discipline and precision. They used every advantage available. They controlled the fight from the first radar contact to the final torpedo strike. The Arctic Sea remains quiet today. Beneath it lies the remains of Scharnhorst. It stands as a record of a battle where information, coordination, and control overcame speed and firepower.